They finally did it, but it was like, and their excuse was that's too traumatizing for kids. Oh, please.
Oh,
Too
Bill.
traumatizing. Now you have to realize how long ago this was. 21 years ago. Now, I want you to think about this. Practically nobody in college today, undergraduate, was alive, or they were a babe in arms
Yeah.
when that took place. So they haven't. It's like when I grew up, I didn't know, Pearl Harbor had taken place, 5 years before I was born.
Right.
So I didn't. My only knowledge of it was the
History.
videos that were shown and the history but it was taught, and it was taught that that those nasty bastards shouldn't have been doing this, and we had every right to defend ourselves. It wasn't any of this. Gee, I wonder what we did to make the Japanese mad at us. Wasn't anything of that nature. It was. I don't wonder if the kids are going to get traumatized by all this nonsense.
Well, I think that that's why we have a lot of the problems that we have today, is that we try to avoid talking about things that are hard or difficult, and we try to live in this utopian atmosphere or create it for our kids, and then our kids cannot handle any sort of challenge that comes their way because we've
Exactly.
coddled them to a point of, this isn't real life, and
Exactly.
you guys, and now they want to cry about it, throw tantrums in the street, light things on fire. Listen to me, you offended me by calling me a her. I want to be a they.
Let me know if there are any debate teams left in our schools these days, because we had debating teams when I was in high school, and our debate teacher said, "All right, who's in favor of capital punishment?" We raised our hands. Who's not in favor of capital punishment? They raised their hands. Said, "All right, each one of you is going to take the opposite side in a debate tomorrow, or next week, or whenever it was." So we had to debate in favor of what we disagreed with, and come up with some sort of an logical argument for it one way or the other.
Yes, and I think debate is a great way for people to also separate their feelings from things, because I think that we have become very feeling based, and guess what? That's not how the world works.
It isn't. But the memorial services that were held around here were extremely impressive, and I want to salute everybody that went to all of those services, the ones who put it together. There was a lady down here from New York, spoke at a church in Beaufort, South Carolina yesterday. Her husband had been part of the firefighters that went in, and he was on duty that morning. And that night, when they were after all of the aftermath, she got a call that he had not been counted among the survivors. And it was, several days before they found his body, or at least recognized it DNA-wise. And the horrific events of that day, bringing us all together. And then that lasted, we were reunited for the first time in a long time, and that lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I think the thing about 9/11 is, so I was in middle school when 9/11 happened, and I mean, it marked like that whole year of our school year. I mean, I remember I was on yearbook, and we had to do a slideshow, and 9/11 was a big part of that.
You knew where you were.
Yes.
You always remember where you were. Everybody, my folks remember about Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
I remember Kennedy's assassination, and remember exactly where I was then, and 9/11 as well.
Yep, and it still is just one of those things that's really impactful for me, just remembering how, I remember getting on the bus that day and I didn't understand what was going on. I was in middle school. So they're like, oh, the towers were hit. And I'm like, okay, I didn't understand the impact at that point until I went into the school. They also had us do drills to go under our desk, and the TV was on all day. And it's something that I don't think anyone that was alive at that time will ever forget.
Look, we'd like to know where you were. You send us messages on our Facebook page or on our website, granewsmedia.com, and you can leave comments there as well. But what is interesting to me was where you were in middle school. Did they make an announcement over the PA system? How did it come about? Because that's what they did when Kennedy was assassinated.
There wasn't an announcement, because when we went into the classrooms, the TVs were already on.
Oh.
Every room had a TV, and I just remember the day just felt heavy the whole day. And like I said, certain times of the day they had us get under our desks, and because they didn't know what was going on either. We were all scared about, okay, there's this attack, but what else is coming? So I think that there was some of that fear. And I lived in a rural mountain town in Utah, so at that time.
I got a call from my daughter-in-law, and I misunderstood what she said. A plane is hit the World Trade Center, and this morning, and I'm thinking we had just completed our trade center here. I thought she was talking about ours.
Oh,
I thought some private
Little
plane or
plane.
something had crashed into our trade center, and she said, and then another plane hit the other tower. Tower? We don't have any towers over there. Oh, that trade center. And that's when I turned on the television to watch exactly what was going on, and hear the perky Katie Couric, who's way overpaid at the National Baroque Channel, say, "Is something wrong with the air traffic control system?" No, dear, that looks to me like a terrorist attack.
yeah. I think that that's the other thing. I think the other thing that I remember is the plane that people fought back on. And
Flight 93.
yes.
We'll go into that further in the broadcast today. Another one of these, there are stories galore coming out that we had no idea what happened. Later in the broadcast also we will talk about a special that Fox did last night. Something I hadn't thought about. You realize President Bush made this decision unprecedented in air traffic control. He said every plane on the ground now. And pilots were getting word from air traffic control. Flight 386. You're being diverted to Lincoln, Nebraska. And they were like, what? And there was and Fox did this great story of this town up in Newfoundland, where 38 airliners. It was a World War II airfield that was used. It was very strategically located for us, combining Canadian and American forces to launch into Europe. And they had this nice airfield, nice town, and it was Gander, Newfoundland. And people said, and the pilot said, it was an Air France flight, said, "We're landing in Gander, Newfoundland." And these people were like, "Where? Where is?" I don't even know where Newfoundland is, much less Gander, Newfoundland. But it's a great story, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail later. But as far as things going on here in Savannah, other than the 9/11, and also will be, it's now King Charles III in merry old England, So the English have a new monarch. We'll be discussing that. Here in Savannah, we're discussing things like the crime wave continues, as the police in Port Wentworth, for those of you outside the area, it's a suburb of Savannah, they were investigating over the weekend over somewhere around 40 car break-ins.
Yes, and it was all at an apartment complex. But
There were a couple of them, yeah.
yes, and I got a notice from my Ring camera that there was an apartment complex in Pooler, which is just outside of Savannah, and they were having multiple break-ins at night. So I think that this is something that I don't know if they're targeting people or apartment complexes are a great place to do this because there are a lot of cars and
all right there together.
Yep.
Very convenient.
Very easy.
And people leave their cars unlocked. And unfortunately, sometimes they leave firearms in their car. Police Chief Jeff Hadley of the Chatham County Police Department has railed against this for years. Said, for goodness sakes, if you're going to keep a firearm in your car, you need to have it in a special lockbox. But for God's sakes, at least lock the car if you don't have that.
I can't believe that people carry around their firearm and don't lock their vehicle.
Exactly.
I am fanatical about locking my vehicle. I'm not going to say that on air, but yeah, I can't believe that people leave their cars unlocked. And I do know that they have, I think
And
that
you've got your submachine gun in there too, don't you?
yeah.
That's what I thought,
Of course, it's locked in the back, in a special case, right?
Special case,
right,
yes.
Bill? So, but I do remember the police chief who recently moved on, and we're looking for a new police chief. So if you're interested, send in your resume. But I think that they had 109 weapons that were taken out of vehicles this year in Chatham County, and that was as of June. So why?
That
why
ain't
would you
good.
why would you leave that in your vehicle for someone to take, especially when they were unlocked cars? So that's not people breaking into the car. That's literally they pulled the handle and it was open.
And meanwhile, we are notorious for killing the goose that laid the golden egg. For those of you who may have studied Aesop's Fables, which I think ought to be a course in college now. For God's sakes, these kids need to learn something. About new developments in downtown Savannah. We have this wonderful, we have the biggest Victorian historic district
And it's beautiful.
in the world, and it's gorgeous. But we're doing everything we can to screw it up.
That sounds
And
like
we-
the government.
Yeah, and we could be losing our historic status, which means that tourism could be impacted considerably, because we want to build all these nice modern buildings. This happened back during the early 1950s. Where there's just a hideous place downtown called the Drayton Towers, because we just had to have, because other cities were building these beautiful glass buildings all over the country. So Savannah, we gotta get modern here. We gotta build us a glass building, and by Jove, they did. And it's sitting there, and now they've actually just they've turned it into some historic thing. There's a historic glass building, but and they've done a good job renovating it and things of that nature. And it's been very useful as far as what people can do with it and live in it, and also businesses that exist in it. But it did not fit in with the historic district in any way, shape, or form. It stood out like the proverbial sore thumb. And it's just a shame that we're sitting there and trying to redevelop things. We have when we built our new civic center, I said back in the mid 1960s, we destroyed one of General Oglethorpe had this beautiful plan about Savannah, laying it out in squares, and that's one of the charms of this city, and one of the reasons that people come here, that millions of people come here every year to see this place, is how beautiful it is. It was so beautiful that Sherman decided not to burn it on his march to the sea in the Civil War. He got here and said, "Oh, this place is pretty," so he gave it to Abraham Lincoln as a Christmas present.
That was nice of him.
Yeah, I thought it was generous.
Yeah.
But
Very
at least he
generous.
didn't burn the city, because he says it's just too beautiful. And it is. We live in one of the
very
beautiful cities
beautiful.
in the world.
Yes.
But yet they destroyed one of Oglethorpe's squares, and they put in this this nice civic center. But now we've built a new arena, too small and in the wrong place, but that's another story for another day. But at the same time, why don't we, and one of the suggestions was from one of the editorials in the Savannah Morning News today, or what's left of it, said city planners and the city managers and the people downtown need to realize how important this is, and to reestablish that square, tear down the old civic center, and and reestablish that square that Oglethorpe had developed, and make it more residential rather than business type thing, an entertainment center.
Yeah, I think that that's a great idea. And I will say that this might be controversial, but I think they need to stop allowing SCAD to buy all of these historical buildings, because it also limits people's ability to go through them and learn the history about them. I think the old Armory building is a good example of that. It's a beautiful building, but
The original
yes,
SCAD building.
And but you can't really go in unless you're part of SCAD.
Yeah,
So
and SCAD's done a wonderful job here, and really one of the reasons that downtown was revitalized was because of Savannah College of Art and Design. But you can get too powerful.
Yep, there
and
can
they,
be-
and they
there
took
needs
some
to
of
be
these
some
and they took
limitations.
some of these white elephants, and they really turned them into very developed them and refurbished them, and it looks much nicer than some building falling down
Yes.
and as an eyesore. But at the same time, we need to preserve. And by the way, they don't pay any taxes on those buildings either.
I think that that's another issue for another day as well,
Yeah,
Bill.
it is. All right, we'll be discussing that at a later date. We'd like your thoughts on that as well. So coming up,
We are going to be jumping into more of this 9/11 stuff, and we're excited to share some video with you coming up.
unbelievable.
Today, we deliver for the people of Florida yet again.
You saved our jobs.
And kept us going.
They tried to shut us down, but you saved our business.
$1,000 bonuses.
You had our backs.
And honored our service.
You led by facts, not fear.
And you let us decide.
You let me go to school.
You gave me a voice.
You put us first.
And didn't let them keep us apart.
You let us learn.
You let us compete.
All of us.
You protected our right to worship together in person.
And you raised our pay.
You protected our waters.
And kept Florida beautiful.
When they attacked you, you didn't cave.
You stood strong for Florida.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Gracias, Gobernador DeSantis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
The last 3 years, Georgia's been tested in ways we could never imagine. And it fell to Governor Brian Kemp to successfully lead us during these troubling times. Georgia is still first in the nation for business. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in state history. Today, people come to Georgia to succeed, start a business, raise a family. Kemp has always backed the blue, stopping the radical left from defunding local police. He passed a tough new election integrity bill that, as the governor likes to say, made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And while some during COVID-19 shut down their economy, Kemp kept our schools and businesses open while keeping Georgians safe. A long list of accomplishments: fighting human trafficking, increasing teacher pay, greater access to quality health care. A governor who works for Georgians. All of us. Governor Brian Kemp.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
And I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard. And all those, the 9/11 memorial services were extremely touching yesterday. And you think, Brittany, that there's, how many more stories can you do? But at the same time, I see books coming out about World War II stories or World War I stories that were buried for years that nobody knew about, that are jaw-dropping.
Well, I think also it takes people time to be able to process things and be able to talk about them. So maybe that's why we see them come out so much later.
Exactly.
But
We
I
had
will
too many World War II veterans that died without taking their stories to their grave, that never talked about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We need to capitalize on who's still alive, because they have so many cool stories. And there is actually a museum, I believe it's in New York or DC, but they actually were able to interview a lot of people before they passed. But it's like a 3D image of them telling their story, which is like
Kind of hologram type thing?
Yes, it's like kind of
cool.
It's very cool, and they did a great job. But I think they're still working on categorizing a lot of that stuff. But it's very cool. We should talk about that one day. But
Well, the one of the things that impressed me, and it was something that you never really think about when 9/11 hit, when the towers were hit, and then we often forget about the Pentagon, and then of course Flight 93, United Flight 93,
Yes.
that those passengers that tried to take back over from the hijackers were not successful, but thank God they just crashed into an empty field in Pennsylvania, because that thing was headed for the Capitol and what was the destination? The White House, the Capitol building?
there were a lot of options.
And hats off, and George Bush did not get the credit that he deserved on this. He grounded everything. All planes were told to get out of the sky. What I never thought about was what happened to those people who were on all those planes. What would what happened? All of a sudden these airports are flooded with flights, with jets that they had no idea were coming in. They've never landed there before. And there was and Fox did a great feature last night called Runway of Hope. And it featured specifically an Air France flight that was coming in, I guess, from Paris, and I presume was either going to JFK or Newark.
Okay.
And the pilot was told, and it was a female pilot, and had mostly a female crew, and she gets the call that you've been diverted. You need to go to it was Gander, Newfoundland. I never heard of Gander, Newfoundland, nor had anybody else for that matter, who were with very few. And she is told, this is where you have to land. And they started doing interviews with all the people who were on that particular flight. There's a guy coming back. He and his wife were adopting a child over in Europe someplace. They're coming home with their new baby.
Oh, goodness.
Now what do we do? And they interviewed people. You know, they were from Boston, they were from Lincoln, Nebraska, they were from Bootcuff, Iowa. I mean, you know, you just name it, wherever they were, and here comes this big jumbo jet landing in what was an Air Force base during the Second World War, and it's still an international airport up there, but 38 jetliners were diverted to that airport. 38. They talked to one of the air traffic controllers who was called in on emergency. He says he's driving across, and he looks up, and there's an airliner landing over, and he said he'd never seen that before, and he saw a couple of others that were already on the tarmac, and he looks up in the sky, and he sees landing lights just strung out. He said they're all were circling, waiting to land. 38 of these things landed. And and the story goes about how wonderful these people were in this town, and how they just came out of the woodwork to help people. That people are sitting on the plane for at least 8 or 9 hours, and trying to figure out what to do. All of a sudden, you know, the town starts rallying. People coming up, they get school was about to start, so all the school buses were up and running. So they bring the school buses out to the airport. People get off, and they're filling up all the hotel rooms that they had. Volunteers from the community were saying, "Well, somebody can stay at our house." So this was one couple said, we walked into this house, and the guy said, "Okay, here's the guest room, here's the bathroom and the towels, the kitchen's over here, here's the refrigerator. You know, help yourself, do whatever." They're like, "God, this is we're total strangers, and this guy's giving us the keys to the house." The pilot, they made sure that all the flight crews, because they didn't know when they were going to leave, had accommodations at all the major motels, and wanted them to get as much rest as possible. So they get this. The Air France pilot said she walked in, and the manager handed her the keys to his new truck and said, "Here, you know, whatever you need." She said, "This is your car." He said, "That's all right. You need this more than I do right now." So then she was like, "Golly, geez." It was just amazing stories of these people and of this wonderful place called Gander, Newfoundland.
Well, I think that's the thing about 9/11. Not only did it bring Americans together, it brought the world together.
Everybody.
They stood with us. I remember they were flying the American flag. They were, you know, doing a lot of things to support us at that time. And it was a horrific event, but I will say that it was a very uniting event.
One of the most touching things, we just lost, Queen Elizabeth II.
Yes.
And one of the most touching things, and I thought one of the classiest things that she ever did, was 2 days later when the Buckingham Palace Guard, the changing of the guard, and they have the band, their band there, and she says, "Play the national anthem." First time, I think it was something like he said like a 600-year tradition. Something was broken on that day when they played the national anthem, and you saw people waving They had American flags, and they were waving them and crying and wiping the tears away. It was very, very touching.
Yes, and I remember that very clearly as well. It was it was a huge deal because they hadn't done it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like I said, it was so uniting for everyone. And as bad as it was, I do think that it was a great time for our country to come together as well as the world. And
we need to get that spirit back.
Absolutely. And
because too many things happened with an overreaction.
Well, I also think that we have forgotten that what makes us Americans, what makes us great, and that we don't have to agree, and that, there are reasons that we have two parties, that we're allowed to disagree with each other, and that it's okay. I can still be your friend. I can still go out for a drink with you, even though you and I do not agree on certain social issues. But I think that we can all agree that we want to be free. But I think that that's another thing that's changed in the country is defining what freedom is.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's,
they don't deserve it.
Well, or
they know what to do with it.
Well, because if your freedom impacts the way I feel, then you shouldn't be allowed to be free. And that's not the way freedom works. And I think that that's something that we have to reestablish in the country.
The thing that bothered me was the stories that I heard from kids on the West Coast. They said, well, that just happened over there. What do we care about what happened in New York or at the Pentagon or wherever? Why should that bother us here in San Francisco or whatever? We now know, I think from intelligence that we gathered later from bad guys that we interviewed, had President Bush not grounded those planes, there were other destinations. There were other terrorists on board some of the other aircraft. I believe the Sears Tower in Chicago was one of the targets, as well as the Pyramid in San Francisco was another one of the targets. So these iconic places in America were being targeted by these terrorists, and we practically did nothing as far as heads rolling on who was in charge of who did what to whom. We had people that were actually promoted after that. I don't think anybody lost their job.
No, well, and I actually saw an article yesterday, which is unfortunate, on 9/11, that they're negotiating with the people that have never held trials for these events that happened. And the Biden administration is now negotiating with them on, different things that we can do, like potentially releasing them. So that's
Or
exciting.
give them
for
Social
everyone.
Security benefits.
Yeah. So I don't understand this administration. They just do everything that is so un-American, and so they do everything against us. And especially releasing an article like that on 9/11, like snubbing the families who really suffered through 9/11 and that never, maybe they never even got the body back of their loved one. I mean, there are plenty of people that were never found because they were just gone.
I mean, people were just vaporized.
Yeah.
When you consider the tons and
impact.
tons of concrete and steel that came down almost immediately. The horrifying part was early on. One of the reporters from Fox was saying that he wanted to get into the building to do a story there. He says, and some police officer said, "You can't go in that building." Dragged him away. He said, "I don't know what that guy's name was. I didn't look at his badge." He said, "We were just running for our lives at that point." He said, "This man saved my life."
And I think that there's so many stories like that of them encouraging people to get away from the buildings because, it was very dangerous. And a lot of these first responders actually ended up having a lot of medical issues due to all of the dust and stuff that they inhaled and going into those buildings.
And how much did we have to fight to get them benefits? We want
it's
to give
disgusting.
it to everybody else. But coming up next, speaking of stories that you've never heard before, the story of a fighter pilot who was assigned a kamikaze mission that morning.
Yep, and some more patriotism, which I would love to see more of. So
Amen to that.
when we get back.
Georgia's the worst, according to Stacey Abrams.
I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. We are the worst state in the country to live.
Oh, bless her heart. Georgia leads the nation because Brian Kemp is governor. He reopened Georgia first, brought thousands of jobs, and Kemp's cut taxes to help families deal with Biden's inflation. Brian Kemp's kept Georgia the best place to live.
My fellow Americans, it looks like some things have changed. Are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents?
You want an abortion? Get one!
Younger parents aren't sure that an appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
When I drive into a neighborhood and there are American flags, it's a message of white supremacy.
I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result in an erosion of the American spirit.
We need to completely dismantle the police department.
If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is free, and freedom is special and rare. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. As long as we remember our first principle and believe in ourselves, the future will always be ours. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people are free. Once you begin a great movement, there's no telling where it'll end.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
We're glad and we're getting real, and one of the things that we're discussing is the memorial services that took place on 9/11. And Brittany, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Savannah had the first cadaver dogs
I did not know that, but I also
to
learned
show up.
That is crazy. Cadaver dogs are amazing.
Well,
I didn't realize how powerful they are.
To realize how horrendous this thing was, they said when they were at least 50 or 60 miles out of New York when they were coming, the dogs were already hitting
Wow.
on DNA stuff or whatever it is that they hit on.
That's crazy.
And we were the first ones there with cadaver dogs. So there were several of our officers that went up there, and unfortunately, a lot of other police showed up as well, and they were kind of turned away. They said, we appreciate your coming, and they'd spent all this money, traveling for hundreds, maybe even 1,000 miles or more, and they said, we can't handle this many people. You're on different frequencies on your radios. We won't be able to coordinate efforts. You're just going to, if nothing else, you're just going to get in the way, make things worse.
Harder, yeah.
As generous as that was, and as heartwarming as that was, he said, we can't. A lot of people were ticked off about it, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this had to be a well coordinated effort, and everybody has to be on the same page.
Yeah. Well, and we had never had anything like that, right? On American soil.
Well,
it was like, what do we do here?
How do you prepare for this? In fact, that is kind of the theme of this story. Pete Hegseth did an interview yesterday from Fox News on Fox and Friends of a young fighter pilot in the National Guard. It was National Guard. She's a rookie pilot. She has given orders to when it looked like United Flight 93 was going to Washington to either hit the Capitol or the White House or God knows where. She was given a kamikaze mission. Her name is Heather Penny, and Pete Hegseth had a chat with her about this harrowing experience and what she remembered that day.
It's one of the most remarkable 9/11 stories you've probably never heard. On this day, 21 years ago, our next guest took to the skies at the direction of Vice President Cheney. Her mission to ram her F-16 into United Flight 93 to try and stop it from hitting the intended target, which could have been the Capitol or the White House. All while having no idea if her father, who was then a United Airlines pilot, was on board that very flight. But thanks to the bravery of the passengers on Flight United 93, she did not have to. Heather Penny, a former fighter pilot with the D.C. Air National Guard who served 2 tours in Iraq and is a senior fellow at the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, joins us now. Heather, what a story. Put us in your place 21 years ago. You're a newly minted pilot, from what I understand, not with the full complement of weaponry you would normally have, and you're given a mission to take down potentially a civilian airliner. Put us in your spot.
Pete, thank you so much for allowing me to join you for the commemoration of 9/11. As a brand new rookie pilot, as you mentioned, we didn't have any ordnance on our aircraft, just training ordnance, but we knew that we had to get airborne. We knew that we had to protect our nation's capital. But our biggest challenges were getting the authorization to launch and getting real live weapons on the aircraft.
And so you didn't have any. Who makes the call that you would then take your F-16, which is much smaller than a civilian airliner, and attempt to ram it? I mean, where does that call made, and are you trained for such a thing?
You're right. No, we're not trained for anything like that. In the military, we don't train for suicide missions because we value our warfighters. They're part of our unique capabilities to be able to apply, instruments of national power. But we were in a position where unless we had those missiles, there was no other choice. Mark Sasseville was the flight lead that day. He was our director of operations. He's now Lieutenant General Mark Sasseville, the deputy chief of the National Guard. He was my flight lead. And when we finally got the authorization to launch, because again, we couldn't just take off of our own volition there at Andrews Air Force Base. We knew we were based there right next to the nation's capital, but we had to have the authorization from our civilian leadership to allow us to take off especially given the magnitude of what we knew the target was.
Heather, were you prepared to do it? If the passengers hadn't taken it down, do you think it would have been you instead?
If the timing had worked out, absolutely. There was no question in Sasa's mind or in my mind what we needed to do. And we were willing to do that because not only had we sworn an oath to protect and defend our Constitution, the United States, and our way of life, protect our people, but anyone who had seen what had happened that day would have been willing to do the same thing. You've had a number of heroes on this morning who made similar choices. And so what truly is amazing to me is that there was nothing special about what Sasa and I were willing to do and what, frankly, the passengers on Flight 93 did do. This kind of heroism, this bravery, this service is inside each and every one of us. I just wish it didn't take a national crisis to bring that heroism out.
Beautifully said. You went on to serve 2 tours in Iraq, retired after 20 years. Heather Penny, thank you for sharing your story, for what you were willing to do that day, and for actively remembering here on Fox and Friends. Thank you so much. Heather Penny, former fighter pilot, DC Air National Guard. Thank you. Amazing.
How's that for beginner's luck?
Wow, what a great story.
You're a rookie pilot. You are told there's a hijacked aircraft that is heading for the nation's capital, and you have to take it down. Since they didn't have ordnance on board, that is missiles and machine gun, bullets and ammunition of that sort, because all that requires them. They're just training. They have training weapons, but it's nothing that would damage anything for the most part. And so the only option is to run your plane into that plane. I can't even imagine the mindset of sitting there saying, I'm going to have to take down a civilian airliner with my fellow Americans on board.
And give up my life for that.
Yeah.
And I think that was an interesting point that she made, was that they don't train for suicide missions. No. Because that's not what we do in this country. We value our military, and we don't want to send them in knowing that they're going to die. And
we value their skills. I mean, we spend millions of dollars training people, and they have these skills that are necessary that in a wartime situation. We don't want to waste a life, but if it is going to prevent some of our landmarks and hundreds of other people getting killed, that's what they do. And like she said, that is what we kind of what we signed up for. That we would give our life for our country, and that would essentially be it.
Yeah, but when you start talking about taking down civilians, that has got to play a role in like how you're feeling about things, because that's really hard to do, even though it's for the greater good. And sometimes we have not been practicing that lately, but I think that that's something that sometimes you have to make those decisions to benefit more people than less.
The whole point of it that people don't realize is that you cannot, if you're outside the military, you can't just say, okay, you need to start loading up the 20 millimeter machine gun. You need to start loading up the Hellfire missiles or whatever they had on board, and say, go get this plane. All that has to come. There are channels that has to come through. And like you said, we couldn't just take off. Couldn't just say, be one of these heroes and, oh well, somebody's hijacking our planes. I'm going to go take off. All this has to come through channels. And unfortunately, when you're in a situation where the blink of an service from yesterday, because nobody lost any more personnel than the New York City Fire Department and Police Department and all those wonderful people. I think over 400 New York police officers and firefighters died, including, of course, the now memorialized Stephen Stiller.
Yeah, and this patriotism, I would love to just cue into the video and look at this type of patriotism, which I would like to see more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's take a look at this.
Can't find it. I touched something and everything went away, so.
Doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to that right now, but the heroism that was shown, I can't even begin to imagine that these people were running in when Stephen Stiller ran into the, he's off duty. He hears the call. He's going to play golf. He hears the call. They've already closed the entrance to the city, so he straps on 60 pounds of equipment and runs through the tunnel. The tunnel's 2 miles long. Now imagine strapping on 60 pounds and running 2 miles just through the tunnel. Then he's got to get into the city and run into the building to try to save people, and disappeared forever and being immortalized by his family. Frank and others who have been here have been. We had. I'm sorry we had to scrap it, but usually this time of year when we've had the Tunnel to Towers run here in Savannah, we were one of about 10 or 12 cities around the country that had one that was put together by some wonderful people here, including Tim Guidera, who was with WTOC. And he's a New York native and had a lot of friends there that time. But it was so nice to get to meet Frank personally when he was down here. When I was out there at the ceremonies that they had and the Tunnel to Towers run, we had to cancel it 2 years in a row because of hurricanes that were coming our way. And they didn't get here, but we said, after a couple of times, we just finally said, this is probably not the time of year to do it, at least in this neck of the woods. But we had some wonderful people come down from New York City firefighters, and we always love them at the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Yes.
And New York City cops, and just absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. And for Frank to put this together, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, where they are now paying off mortgages to fallen first responders and military.
Well, and helping their kids go to college and paying for expenses that in a two-family household would be a lot easier. It's
unbelievable. Just all the things that they've done. Over 500 houses now.
Wow.
And mortgages that they have paid off. And what a tribute to Stephen, the youngest of the 7 brothers who gave his life that day. I just can't, and this is one of the reasons the firefighters train and everything else, because you have to be in great shape. I can't imagine running a mile with 60 pounds.
No, half mile, even a quarter mile.
I can't imagine running a block with 60 pounds. Okay, Larry, now let's just forget that. But to be able to do what he did, and to sacrifice his life to try to save others, is just phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
Amazing stories coming out of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
All the heroes that participated in, saving people and running into the line of fire. So we will have more on patriotism when we get back.
Yep, coming up on Get Real America.
Reckless spending, driving up inflation, higher prices that hurt Georgians.
I'm trying to save $2, and Senator Raphael Warnock votes to spend almost $2 trillion.
$140 to fill my truck. And Senator Warnock voted to allow $140 million to be spent building a resort in Florida?
$15 for burgers. Senator Warnock voted to allow $15 million to be spent on a soccer stadium in New Jersey.
Tell Senator Warnock to stop voting for reckless spending. Stop.
Stop. Please stop.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Good old Raphael Warnock.
Oh,
yes, sirree. One of the 2 empty suits that we have up there in Washington. When I was doing a morning radio talk show here, I spent practically getting my knees bloody, begging them to come on the air with me. and do interviews. And I finally got to meet Senator Ossoff because he was at Fort Stewart when they got the new Abrams tanks.
How was that experience?
Well, I knew he was disappointed because the tanks weren't electric. They were still running on diesel fuel. But I hate to admit this, I liked the guy. He was as personable as he could possibly be. Also, I didn't realize how tall he was. It looked like he could start in the NBA.
Well, and the thing about politics and politicians, Bill, just because you're a nice person doesn't mean I want you representing me.
Well, I didn't say that I liked his politics, but he was extremely courteous. He no question was out of bounds. And so I asked several of them, and he.
Were you on or off the record, Bill?
I was on the record.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I played it all on the air.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So and to a degree, one of the things that he did agree with was keeping what we call our air defense capability here, our training center here, open.
I think that's the only thing that Ossoff and
Warnock actually agree on militarily,
and it was
actually in favor of
a good thing that they did.
Yeah.
Maybe the only good thing that they've done so far.
We have an air training center here for fighter pilots, and they were talking about the Defense Department in their indefinite wisdom was talking about closing it. Just in fact, this month we're having the ribbon cutting for something like a $53 million state-of-the-art hangar that they were just completing, and they said, "Oh, we're going to close it in March. So we're going to cut the ribbon in September for the new hangar. We're closing the place in March." Well, there's been such an outcry, the Defense Department saying, "Well, maybe we're not going to close it."
Yeah, they shouldn't close it.
No.
It's a waste of our tax money as well. I think that's the other thing. If we spent the money, it stays open. They need to stop doing useless things.
But I even told Senator Ossoff when he was here at Fort Stewart, said, I've called your office several times. I've asked for an interview, and they haven't gotten back to me. And he said, his response was, "So noted." And apparently he noted it and
forgot about it.
Yeah, and never.
And that was it.
Haven't heard from him since. And the same thing happened in the first district. You folks in South Carolina are so well represented by Nancy Mace now. But the guy who was in before Nancy was a Democratan, and once again put in calls to his office practically every week to have him on with us. Joe Cunningham, who now unfortunately is running for governor of the Palmetto State against Henry McMaster. But we'll see how that works out. I think McMaster is going to hand him his head, but at the same time, we got time and time. Why won't what are they afraid of? You never see Nancy Pelosi or Adam Schiff or any of these cretins on. They never come on Hannity. And Sean says, "I'll give you 3 hours on the radio and 1 hour on television to spew all of your nonsense," and none of them ever take up the invitation. Why, if you have such a good, solid argument, why wouldn't you take on that challenge? You're offered 4 hours of national broadcast time, and you don't want to go?
Because it will implode the narrative, Bill. That's exactly what it is. They don't want to they have all of the other news media on their side, so they don't want to get involved where it could potentially blow up their whole story and narrative.
Adam Schiff, he is so low he could put on a top hat and walk under a snake. But he is still doing this Russian narrative thing about the Hunter Biden laptop. But this is still Russia's a big Russian hoax. You just can't make this stuff up.
It's ridiculous. And the fact that they just... It's that whole thing. The bigger the lie, the more you repeat it, the more likely people are to believe you. So I think that people need to learn a lesson here.
Easier to believe a big lie than it is a little one.
Yes, it is. And on that note, let's switch back to patriotism.
Please.
And this thing in New York, I love to see it because there are so many people that we see not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and not being good to the country. So I really loved this video. Even though I'm not a huge New York Jets fan, I think that they did a great job.
Yeah, you mentioned we were going to see this New York Jets thing. I thought a big deal was maybe they'd won a ball game or something, but it turns out to be something different to consider as part of the 9/11 memorial.
So proudly we hail.
Play ball.
Such a cool...
That was, I got goosebumps on my goosebumps. I love that.
Yes, me too. I love to see patriotic people and people singing along and holding the firefighter helmet and just, I mean, such a great tribute to 9/11 and to the country.
I so want to go see that memorial. I don't particularly want to go to New York City, but I so want to see that memorial. The last time we were there, it was only about half finished, so it was basically looked like a hole in the ground more than anything else.
It's beautiful.
I would love to. You've seen it.
I've seen it. I've gone through the museum. I've seen the memorial. It is absolutely beautiful. They did a great tribute, and I mean, you just get this feeling when you're there. I mean, there's just this this calm, eerie type feeling when you're at the place where 9/11 took place.
Yeah, in situations like that, there seems to be an aura. There's some sort of presence that it cannot be explained, and you really feel that inner peace of some sort of these people who are at peace now, and who died so many times so many died that day. And one of the most horrifying things that some of the reporters and some of the firefighters who were there and survived the situation said that they were, of course, they didn't expect the towers to fall.
Right.
And they're there in the they're there in the lobby, and they've got blueprints out and as to what they're going to do, and making strategic plans to go get people. And they start hearing these thuds, wondering what that is, and suddenly realize that it was people jumping to their death. That that there was no other choice rather than burn to death. They would rather end it by jumping out, and that was one of the most. I remember that there was a iconic picture of this one firefighter chief who realized suddenly that the look on his face when he realized what that was, the look of horror on his face was just breathtaking and chilling. How that people had to make that choice and they're just going to work that day. And we hear all the stories. One of the things that is ignored by the 9/11, and I was glad to see that at least the president went to the Pentagon yesterday, but we don't talk about the Pentagon that much. The how many people died there? I don't remember how many it was, or how many were badly burned or things like that. But again, we had Pete Hegseth on just a moment ago, talking to that fighter pilot who was told she may have to go on a kamikaze mission to knock down Flight 93, United 93, going into Washington. But the flight that hit the Pentagon, he talked to 3 now retired Army colonels who were in the vicinity. And had it not been for a particular set of circumstances, they would have been killed. One of them said that he was following it on television, and his wife calls him. He had a briefing that he had to do for. He said a General Webster, and I don't know if it was General Glenn Webster, who was the 3rd ID commander here later. Because he never mentioned his first name. But he said he was preparing a briefing for General Webster on something, and there was no particular time frame for it. But he had finished it up. He gets up to take it to Webster's office, and the phone rings. It's his wife. She wants to know how he's doing. He's following this on television. You think you're safe at the Pentagon? And of course, they thought they were.
Yeah.
And he said that's fine. No sooner had he hung up the phone than the plane hit. He said his office, where that plane hit, there was a hallway connecting it hit the hallway that he would have been walking down to take that report to General Webster.
Wow.
Had it not been for her phone call. Another colonel said that he was sitting at his desk. They were doing some sort of a briefing, and when the plane hit right next to the room next to them, he said he could see one of the wings come through. He was knocked backwards, and said the room just clouded up, and they started yelling at each other. Are you okay? Or who's there? Anybody need help? Is something on top of you? Can we get you out? And the 3rd gentleman said that he had gone to he was at another briefing, but they were nearby, and it was just the circumstances were just had it not, but
they had aligned perfectly in order for them not to be killed.
Yeah, yeah.
And we heard a lot of those stories too when it comes to, there was a reason I didn't go to work that day. There's a reason that, these random things happened, and
it happens. And it happens the other direction too. The on Flight 93, the guy who's famous for Let's Roll had planned to take the Monday. He had planned to fly out the day before, and delayed it for a day for I forget what it was, but he decided to go Tuesday instead of Monday, but consequently,
but if he had not been on that flight,
the bravery of those people. The unbelievable. I mean, they found out somebody, but he would, although it was a little private plane, somebody was a pilot, had some sort of flying experience. They get those people together and to do what they did, and they darn near pulled it off.
So close.
They came very close to taking the control away from those terrorists and getting that plane back and maybe saving it. But what they did is immortal, and they definitely died as heroes. God knows what, because I have a feeling that plane was either headed to the White House or the Capitol building.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question in a lot of our minds that that's where they were headed. But I also think that that's why it's so important that we remember this day, and that, I would hope that it continues to be a day where we can come together. We can, understand that the country's not perfect.
It's called Patriots Day for a reason.
Yes.
And it should be. And it should be it should be taught as part of our just American history in our schools, and not just in 17 states as we learned yesterday.
Yes, I think that we need to get this in all schools, and, maybe that's another reason the Department of Education should go.
Yeah. And in good old merry old England, it's now God Save the King. Next on Get Real America.
As your governor, I promise you, whatever challenges come our way, I will always lead the California way.
You
I say that's the California way.
You guys are really awesome. Thank you so much.
Based on compassion,
I mean, if we're going to be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here.
common sense. Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. We all need to self-medicate periodically. Telling the truth. Telling the truth. Treasuring our diversity.
Success to hit my...
Telling the truth. Following science. Protecting our planet.
Love like yours will surely come my way. Hey, hey, hey.
Gavin Newsom, courage through crisis.
Hi, this is Herschel Walker. I want to endorse Bruce Thompson as our new labor commission because he's going to do the best job you've ever seen for the great state of Georgia.
Listen, I'm standing here with the great Herschel Walker. We all know what's happened in our U.S. Senate. It's time for a change, and I 100% endorse Herschel Walker to represent Georgia and the United States as we take back our country for the people of Georgia and for the United States.
God bless.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Good old Gavin Newsom doing for California what he did for San Francisco. And Brittany, it reminds me of a meme we saw the other day. Do you know the difference between California and the Titanic?
I mean, what is it, Bill?
The lights were still on the Titanic when it was sinking.
Well, California, welcome to blackouts. That's exciting and fun for you guys.
Yeah, you know, they've actually made it, it's getting so desperate out there, they've actually made a decision to keep one of their nuclear power plants open that they had planned to close down.
If this doesn't show people that they need to, like, change course, I don't know what will.
They won't.
It's unfortunate, but...
You double down, it's been my experience with these people, they double down on stupid.
Well, I mean...
When you they're science deniers, including calling us science deniers. Do you realize that the progress that has been made in nuclear power plants over the last 40 years, where we're the only state that's actually building 2 of them right now, And I hope that Biden and his Confederates up there don't shut it down like they did that a big power plant they shut down in Michigan about 3 weeks before it was going to be finished.
Well, that's why we need to keep Kemp and not let Stacey in, because I think she would love to start shutting some stuff down.
Boy, wouldn't she, though?
Yeah, that's what she's running on as her environmental platform. But I will say that I think with the ruling with the EPA stuff, I think that is a big benefit. That was a ruling that came down in June from the Supreme Court. So hopefully that will help us out and make it so they can't close our nuclear plants and that it's left to the states.
Amen to that, because we're still maybe about a year or so away from the third reactor being online, and then another year or so when the fourth reactor comes online. And then we'll be selling power to California so they can charge their electric cars.
I would rather share it with our neighbors in Florida.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Florida's doing okay. FPL, Florida Power and Light, they haven't shut their nuclear power plants down that I know of.
Well, I think Governor DeSantis actually said over the weekend, once everyone is done moving out of California to Florida, maybe they'll have adequate power for the people left. So he's not wrong. He is not wrong.
But you make when you start making the best airplane hadn't been built yet. The best car has never been built yet. They keep building, and improving and improving and improving. They now have these nuclear reactors that are kind of like modular. They can set these things up very, very quickly and power a city up. And the wind doesn't have to blow. The sun doesn't have to shine. Speaking of the sun and the solar panels, did you hear that Amazon had to close one of its distribution centers in California because what?
I think they had a fire.
They did. You know what it was?
The solar power.
The solar
getting too
got
much
so
sun.
hot, the solar panels caught on fire.
Again, in California, if you want to know what not to do, just follow the news in California.
And they're trying desperately in Virginia. Now, why would you do this? The legislature in Virginia said that they passed some sort of resolution. Ditto bill. Whatever California's doing, that's what we're going to do.
Such a stupid policy.
So by 2035 or something, everybody should be driving an electric car in Virginia. They're trying. We've got with Governor Youngkin and Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears. They said we got to get rid of that piece of crap.
Thank goodness. This is the importance of electing good officials.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are getting out there to vote this season.
I remember we had a voice that I miss besides Rush Limbaugh's right now is Charles Krauthammer. His brilliance on Fox and his columns that he wrote and the books that he wrote were just over the top brilliant. And his son was here a couple of years ago when he put a book together of all of his dad's not speeches but op-eds and things of that nature. Yeah. And he said that one of the things that his dad always told him, he said, you can get your music wrong and you can get a lot of things wrong in your society. Get your politics wrong. And the society that gave us Bach and Beethoven gave us Auschwitz and Dachau and Bergen-Belsen. So you get your politics wrong, and so
there's severe consequences.
That's why we tell people, they say, well, I'm just not into politics. I just don't care. I just don't follow that stuff. It follows you.
Not only that, how do you like the price of gas, the price of food, the price of your energy?
Oh, listen, and they're making such a big deal now about how the price of gas has dropped $1 a gallon in the last few weeks.
In the West, it is still like $4.50 a gallon. I talked to my mother, and I'm just like, what? What is going on out there? And we have a lot of refineries, so in the West. So it's like, why is your gas so expensive? But it is.
One of the reasons is, of course, they have these boutique gasolines. They have to refine gasoline one way for Sacramento than they do for San Francisco or Los Angeles or you name the California city. So once they have to do that, they have to shut everything down. They have to go through this different formulas and chemical whatever it is that they have to do. So all that takes time, and so the supply is less supply, more demand. What happens? And also, and the fact that we have some of the cheapest gas in America because Governor Kemp has kept the Georgia gas tax off of our bill. Now, with the price coming down, he may decide, to go back to it. But at least I think through the end of October, we
I believe
still
it's the
don't
14th that he has it scheduled out for, but I do think because we are in election year, I think it will be extended. I'm just being honest. I mean,
Well,
we're
yeah.
getting real here. I mean, we are in election year.
Sure.
So I will think that he will continue to do right by the citizens, and he understands that just because gas is lower, it doesn't mean that it's still not expensive.
Exactly, and it's not going to get any lower anytime soon.
No.
When we have these idiots in the administration who think that somehow that fossil fuels are so evil. How come the fossil fuels that we have, that we're standing on top of, that we're not going after, are evil, but yet asking our enemies to sell us theirs somehow is helping to save the planet or helping out here?
If you're asking for common sense from the left side of the aisle, I think that we're going to be here a while.
Oh, yeah. Common sense is not very common anymore.
No, definitely not, especially when it comes to energy policy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, one of the most confusing things I've ever listened to in my life is their energy policy.
And you know who also is one of these fossil fuel not advocates, but guys who doesn't like fossil fuel, what they call fossil fuels, the new King of England.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's one of these environmental wackos.
Interesting.
And here's a guy who is just a fountain of eloquence.
I mean, he is just a vibrant
I'm
speaker
telling
as
you,
well.
yes, sirree.
We're going to bless you with this speech right now.
He addressed Parliament just a few hours ago.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother, for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise with destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today. Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state, in the Commonwealth and across the world, a deep sense of gratitude for the more than 70 years in which my mother, as Queen, served the people of so many nations. In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her peoples. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion as sovereign never wavered through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that
Wow, he's so charismatic.
Yeah, there you go. Nevertheless, that was an address he gave to the nation. He addressed Parliament around 10 o'clock this morning, England time, London time, and he's not exactly what you'd say the fountain of eloquence or a dynamic speaker, and he's not I guess Camilla, as a matter of fact, is kind of endeared herself to the public. But one of the things they said about King Charles is that he needs to keep Prince William around.
Yes, definitely. Everyone loves William and
keep
Kate.
him on the short leash.
Yes,
because he's extremely popular.
Yes,
along with Kate.
How could they not be?
I know.
She's so cute.
How personable, and it's interesting on this side of the pond how many of us are so fascinated with royalty, and others would say could care less.
Yeah, and I think it's just the number one, the first thing is that we don't have one. Number two, also the interesting thing to me is that we escaped it. Like, we did not want that when we were founded. So kind of interesting, but also that it's just a stabilizing thing there in the UK for, them to have the monarch.
They are overwhelmingly in favor of keeping the monarchy, and because that had been in danger. And I think one of the things that Elizabeth did more than anything else is to save it. They've been through some pretty rocky times just in the last few years, and I think her steady hand on the situation had as much to do with saving the monarch.
Yeah, well, and the fact that she was also someone that put duty above all else, and she never reacted to things. She always remained calm. Her demeanor was always very pleasant, and I think that but I'm also not surprised that her passing comes just under a year after her husband passed.
Yeah.
I think that he was kind of the person that probably knew her the best, and she was able to maybe let down that queen guard a little bit with him. But I heard they also had a very funny sense of humor. I think that he actually dressed up as a guard one day and had her walk past, and he ended up spooking her, and they had a cute little interaction.
She was a real person. They showed on one of the shows of something she reacting with a car. Actually, did a spot with a cartoon character, and it was really, really amusing to see that she was real. She was genuine. She's going to be very near Edinburgh, Scotland. They had a place there that was that was her favorite place, because it was one of those places where she could go out shopping and just be with the people and not have to worry about either security or being mobbed or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and she was, she in power for 70 years. So, I don't think you also have to think about how many people, that's all they've ever known is the queen in their lifetime. The percentage of people that she, impacted is incredible.
We said earlier about 9/11 that, kids in undergraduate school and college right now had not been alive, or at least they were a babe in arms when 9/11 took place. So
kind of crazy.
These people, they've never known anything except that queen. I heard somebody say, people feel like Charles is ready. I said, well, I guess so. He's 72 years old. He ought to be ready. 72 years isn't enough to get you prepared for king. Ain't nothing going to happen, hurt you, going to help you now. All right, coming up next,
we're going to be talking about stuff going on out west, which is always interesting.
Yeah, can't wait to hear this.
Yeah.
That's next.
California and many other western states are experiencing simply unprecedented temperatures. In fact, this heat wave is on track to be both the hottest and the longest on record for the state and many parts of the West for the month of September. Californians, you've stepped up to help in a big way to keep the lights on so far, but we're heading to the worst part of this heat wave, and the risk for outages is real and it's immediate. These triple-digit temperatures throughout much of our state are leading, not surprisingly, to record demand on the energy grid. Everyone has to do their part to help step up for just a few more days. Individuals, the state, industries, business, all doing their part to help reduce strain on the grid. Now, here's specifically what you can do. In the early morning hours, particularly tomorrow and the next day or so, pre-cool your home. Run your air conditioning earlier in the day when more power is available. And we encourage you to close your windows and blinds to keep your home cool as well. And today and tomorrow afternoon after 4 p.m., in particular 4 p.m., please turn your thermostat up to 78 degrees or higher and avoid, to the extent possible, using any really large appliances. You can visit flexalert.org to learn more about what you can do. Californians, you've rallied before, and we can do it again. Keep it up.
than anything else? You realize that? The point is, we ask so much of you, so much of you. I've not...
What a
Welcome back.
contrast.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, they also had an interview with Donald Trump after 9/11, and he was always patriotic. Always. He always loved the country, and he always appreciated the first responders. And you can tell in those rallies, however you feel about Donald Trump, he is an inspiration to a lot of people, and he screams patriotism.
He is 100% American, 100% real, and his family, the family unit that he has of the adoring children, and who have gone out on their own and started their own companies. Okay, they had some help.
Yeah.
And so did Donald. I think his father loaned him like $1 million, gave him $1 million to get started. But somebody can give you $1 million and you can start something and you can lose your shirt.
Yep.
Overnight.
Yeah, and it's not just one kid that's been successful. It's all of them.
All of them.
And they're not drug addicts. I mean, I'm not pointing any fingers, but we have some of that going on.
They don't have, they're not off sitting on boards of directors making $87,000 a month on a business that they have no clue as to what they're doing.
Yeah, and I don't think any of them have been criminally charged in anything.
No, although they're trying.
They are trying. Doesn't mean it's something that should be going on, but
Donald Trump Jr. I think used some Russian dressing on his salad one day, and that was considered unpatriotic or something. Want an investigation into that?
Wow.
I want the FBI that CBS brings us every Tuesday night during the regular season. I think they're going to start those up again. I love that FBI. I wish we had that one.
Yeah,
we don't.
That's fictional these days.
Going fictional. After the real bad guys and getting them behind bars and arrested and then some of them, and shot and killed or whatever it is. Get rid of those people. I want that FBI. I don't want the one we have now. It is pathetic.
Agree.
And to you field agents, I feel for you.
But people need to start stepping up and they need to whistleblow on all of these administrative people in the FBI that are wreaking havoc.
They are coming out of the woodwork to Jim Jordan and others, the Republican congressman from Ohio, and as well as Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa. They are coming out, and I think they've something like, they said those, at least 17. I heard a lot higher numbers than that are coming forward saying just how bad it is, to the point where the attorney general, Merrick Garland, actually told, put out a warning. Don't talk to politicians
or the media. So I believe that is, can you imagine if Republicans had done this during the sham impeachment that they were doing and what that would have looked like? So it's definitely interesting to see how, when Democrats are in charge, how much power they abuse, and also the fact that Republicans, we don't even hold people accountable when we're in charge. So
we're still, true. We're still reeling over this god awful speech that 2 Thursdays ago that President Biden made at Independence Hall that looked like he was like part of Dante's Inferno.
I saw a video of this guy that was actually taking just a snapshot of that speech of Biden in that background and showing it to people and asking them. And most people, all they would say was F Joe Biden. So people are mad. They don't think that he is doing the right thing. And I think that the media is really making it seem like there's more support for him than there is, because I'll tell you what, every single person this guy talked to was like, this guy, F him.
Brittany, I want you to put the shoe on the other foot here. Let's say that Donald Trump, right after the Bernie Sanders supporter tried to murder
Steve Scalise.
Steve Scalise. Well, not only Steve Scalise, but there were a bunch of other congressmen and senators out there practicing in that baseball field that day. Imagine if Donald Trump had gone to Independence Hall, had this background, this red background behind him, and started railing against these ultra left-wing Democrats that were trying to murder congresspeople and senators, and saying how we needed to get rid of them and how they were destroying our precious democracy. What would the press's reaction have been to that one?
I mean, we would have seen he is Hitler.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing. And I mean, not that they didn't do that anyways,
Mhm.
but the other thing is I could never imagine Donald Trump doing that because he wouldn't.
No, he wouldn't.
And Republicans typically won't, but I will say they need to start standing up. They need to get stronger in what they're doing because they're very, very weak and it's not helping any of us.
We even said, we don't blame Bernie Sanders
No.
for what this guy did. But yet, when somebody does it from a Republican side, suddenly that's Donald Trump who was fanning the flames of all this anarchy and causing discord in the country and fomenting the overthrow of the government.
But I think that's the other thing. Any chance that or opportunity that they get to throw Donald Trump's name out there, they're going to take it. And they're going to continue to demonize him. I mean, I think we just saw 35 raids last week. Anyone that was a Trump supporter or that was involved in January 6th, they're still continuing these raids. It's absolutely ludicrous, and I can't believe that we're allowing this to go on. And we need to get more people involved and say, no, this is not the right thing to do. What they're doing is illegal. All of that stuff that happened is protected under the First Amendment. And they just act like it's only protected if you're on the left side of the aisle. If you swing any way, shape, or form in the conservative way, we're coming for you.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about getting real here. This is one of the things that we need to get down to is that we have to get involved, and you need to get involved in politics whether you like it or not, because these people, if they can come after them, they can come after you. And believe me, you're next. They're going after the low-hanging fruit right now. But when they hire 89,000 IRS agents, those people aren't there to answer the telephone, to make sure that your phone call gets through.
No.
Besides, with all the people that call the IRS, 89,000 wouldn't take care of the situation anyway.
No, and they're continuing to tax us out of oblivion. And, for those of you that aren't following what's going on economically, we are not in good shape. And it's not going to get easier or better. I would love to say that there are going to be some easy decisions moving forward, but they're all going to be hard decisions. And we're not going to like them. And if you think that the inflation is bad now, wait until, they're going to have to raise more interest rates, Bill. We're up to 6%, I believe, in mortgages.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to cut it. The amount of inflation that we see coming in, and, we also see all of these other countries having mass demonstrations because of what their political officials have done to them.
And it is self-inflicted.
Absolutely.
There's no reason for us to be energy poor. There's no reason for blackouts to be happening or rolling blackouts to be happening in California.
Is that freedom, Bill? When they dictate
No.
what kind of energy you can use, their job is not to dictate that. It's to make
Or
sure
what
that
kind
we
of car
have it.
you can drive.
Yeah, it's to make sure we have the energy that we need. That is otherwise stay out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to dictate this.
And we have plenty. We're not destroying the planet by going after our own oil, okay? In fact, we're helping to save it because we're not having to transport it from somewhere else, having to refine it even more because most of the rest of the world doesn't have crude oil and other products as clean as we have in ours. We have enough natural gas to run the entire world for about 400 years. I forget the figure. I can't even wrap my head around the amount of natural gas. I remember that they gave a number of so many trillion cubic feet of this stuff that's underneath us, and it is the cleanest of the fossil fuels. Natural gas power plants are the only other ones that are cleaner are nuclear power plants.
Well, also, we are the ones that can pump the oil out in the most efficient and the cleanest way. So if we're doing it, we're actually the ones helping the environment because we're doing it in the cleanest way. When we're getting it from Venezuela, they don't drill the same way, and they don't care about the environment nearly as much as we seem to in the Western Hemisphere, which is unfortunate.
And then what's the carbon footprint of them shipping it here on ships that come in running on diesel fuel?
Like I said, energy policy is like a circular conversation because it makes no sense. It's terrible.
What we could be, not only would this economy just be roaring if we started going after our own oil again and all of our other resources. But we could be selling that now. Right now, the people of Europe are being held hostage by the guy that the big orange, bad orange man insulted them, telling them they shouldn't be closing their nuclear power plants when he told Angela Merkel what an idiot she was in Germany for shutting down their nuclear power plants and trying to go to wind and solar. I was in Germany. I saw some of these windmills that were a blight on the landscape, and half of them weren't turning.
Well, that's the thing, Bill. I think that right now people are paying 5 times more than they were last year in their energy bills in Europe, which is insane. And how long can you keep up with that, especially when
winter's coming?
Exactly. It's a very scary time, not just for the U.S., but I think for other countries as well, because there's a lot of unknowns that are going to happen that have never happened before, because nothing's ever aligned in this way.
And as Donald Trump told him, rootin' tootin' Putin is holding them hostage now and not selling them the gas that they need in order to heat their homes. And it gets very cold in Europe because of climate change.
Oh, geez. We're going to have to go to break now. I got to take a break from this talk, Bill.
Don't we all?
Yes.
All right. And then coming up next,
we'll be still heading out west.
Can't
when
wait
we get
to
back.
see this.
Wasteful Washington spending is killing us with inflation and sky-high prices on groceries and gas. Senator Raphael Warnock voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be squandered on a luxury resort in Florida, a New Jersey soccer stadium, a ski area in Iowa. Tell Senator Warnock to start voting against reckless spending to stop inflation. Georgia families need cheaper gas and food, not frivolous luxuries in other states.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in biking the blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them.
I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
So exciting to see Herschel Walker up 4 points in the polls, I believe, right now.
Yes, and I think it's going to get wider, and I think that the same thing with Brian Kemp.
Yes, I'm excited for all of that. It's good news for us here in Georgia.
We saw headlines about a week or so ago that the Abrams people are in full mode of panic at this point.
Yes, and they should be. And guess what? You know what? If you don't say, number one, if you were going to continue to virtue signal, that I can't get over the picture of Stacey Abrams, no mask, with all of the kids in the background masked. That is wrong, and I can't believe she had that posted. I'm baffled. Bad campaign strategy.
Did you see that Sherwin-Williams has signed a contract with the city of Brunswick?
I did not.
Yeah, to do a Stacey Abrams mural. So they're going to need that much paint, nevertheless.
Oh my goodness.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note, bad policies. In Boise, they had a gay pride event happening, which everyone was very excited about. They had
Boise?
I did say Boise, Idaho. Yes, that's more my neck of the woods. It's amazing how
beautiful city and area.
Yes, it is. I love Boise. It's a very fun city. It's a college town, very cool. But unfortunately, it's been captured by the woke, like every other major city in the U.S. But they were having a pride event, and there is a bank it's a West Coast bank. It actually originated, I believe, in Utah, but it's called Zions Bank. And they pulled
Zions Bank? Oh, okay,
yes,
okay.
yes. We also have a national park in Utah called Zion, so I believe that's where it came from. And, they're very conservative leaning, and they had donated money for this pride event because they wanted to support,
LGBTQ X04 subparagraph B.
I think that there's a limit on the
symbol for boron.
The letters and numbers that they're willing to cover, but
yeah.
And I think that this is something that I believe we have their statement up on the screen, but they were talking about just how they didn't know what was involved with they had listed out, you know, that they didn't know that they had children involved and minors, and so they were like, we're not doing this. So it was a drag kids performance, and so they've had a lot of sponsors pull out. At least 6 to 7 sponsors have dropped out of the Boise Pride Festival due to concerns over performance involving minors.
Drag kids.
Yes, and that's like a $48,000 net loss for them in donations. So they did announce on Thursday that they were going to pull the event, and this is the statement from Zions. Over the years, Zions Bank has supported a variety of Pride events because they're an important part of our support for the LGBTQ. See, there's no plus or anything on there.
Mhm.
Employees and allies, and are representative of our efforts to foster an inclusive, diverse, and equitable workplace and community. The support for all of the employees and communities remains unchanged. However, when we committed to our sponsorship of this year's Boise event, we were unaware of the participation of minors. And I think that that is a good stance to have. We should not be encouraging these events for minors to participate or for minors to even be there.
They always have some sub rosa agenda that they don't bother to tell the public about until it's too late.
Well, and Zions Bank was like, as soon as they heard, they were out. And
Good for them.
And I think it was short notice. I don't think they gave them a lot of, I think it was under a week notice about this. So,
Mhm.
but good for them for standing up. And I think that this is, you know, where we're starting to see the culture shift. And I think it's a good thing, Bill, that we're seeing people stand up and say, you know what, we can't support this. It doesn't mean that we don't support this community. It just means that we can't support the involvement of minors in this.
There are so many organizations that are, you know, that might be supporting gays or gay culture, but there are others who say, you know, enough of this. I want to be included. I don't want to be excluded. And if you put me in this so-called gay community, whatever it is, I'm being excluded. I'm not entitled to anything, any special privileges. I just want to be part of the crowd.
Well, I think that that's the thing, like being equal.
Yeah.
Means that you're not asking for, we celebrate our military,
Mm-hmm.
what, one Memorial Day, right? I mean, they get one day.
Or Veterans Day.
Yes, so maybe 2 days. But we have a Pride Month. Why?
Oh.
I'm not saying that, I just disagree with the fact that we put so much more importance on people that are a minority group, that they have the rights that they need, and they should have equal rights, just like women. I think women have equal rights. Thank you for the feminist movement. I think we're done. Like, I'm good with where we're at. Please stop. It's now damaging everything.
Yeah, everybody, and of course we have this hideous story about how the faux president is trying to change Title IX.
Yes, and they're actually, today is the last day to actually submit comments regarding that. So
Mhm.
if you guys haven't, you should go to the website and
Please do.
And submit your comments, because they're required by law to answer the comments, and the more comments they have, the longer it's going to take them. And hopefully they will also put some sort of stopgap there where, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
It is just pathetic what they've done to women's sports, and all of these people who stood up and fought for this all these years. You're beginning to see that what they were fighting for is not what they told you, because where's the National Organization of Women? Where's Code Stink? Where are all the other organizations that have come along and talked about women's rights? And then when we come up and say, here's a guy that's the best woman you've ever seen in the world in the pool.
It's
And I
official.
said,
Men
yeah.
are the
I
best
said,
women.
Yeah, men are the best women.
Can you
Yes,
believe
sirree. This is, he's got to be who she is.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that there was a point where I think feminism was necessary. It was great. I think that they did good things. But at this point in time, feminism is just destroying culture in this country. And it demonizes men. I don't believe in that. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I don't think we should be demonizing anyone.
Exactly.
But to really break apart how men and women and that dynamic work, I think that that's been a terrible cultural issue for us that they've created.
It is sad. This swimmer was actually in an event where in a big championship meet where a girl actually tied him in the event.
And they both won. Isn't that just the
they
saddest
both
thing you've
won,
ever seen?
but they brought up and they said, well, we only have one trophy. We're giving it to him. And she said, why? Because it was the photo op. They wanted the publicity that they were giving this gal, the trophy, and said, we'll order one for you and mail it to you.
And this is one of those topics that I think people need to stand up. It doesn't mean we're hateful towards trans people, but at the end of the day, there is a reason that we have separate sporting teams for women and men. And I will tell you what, if there was a man competing with me when I was in high school or college, my dad would have lost it. He would be standing up for me and he would be saying, this is not right, this is not okay, regardless of the other person.
You know, sometimes when reality sets in, the head of the American Communist Lovers Union, the ACLU here in Georgia, actually resigned her position.
Good.
She had been one of these big advocates of guys can use women's restrooms if they want to. And she's in one of the restrooms in Atlanta. And she's in there with her 7 and 9 year old daughters. And suddenly this guy that looks like he ought to be playing linebacker for the Falcons walks in. And absolutely, her daughters were absolutely traumatized. And she said, I've been advocating for this, and reality has suddenly slapped her right between the eyes. And she actually resigned from the ACLU in Georgia.
That's a good thing.
Although, it is.
Except for maybe she should have stayed and fought for it, because now we're going to get some other whack job that's in there promoting the same stuff. And I will tell you, we're opening the doors for pedophiles. And I don't care what you want to call them, they are pedophiles.
Exactly.
They are not minor attracted persons. We are not putting them in this category. They're pedophiles. It's criminal. We're opening the door for them to have access to our children. It's not okay. People need to stand up and quit taking out your cameras. Do something about it. That's the other thing. People will take out their camera and film this whole thing that goes on, but they won't stand up for other women. They just sit by and watch it. The altercations happen.
Well, that can be considered in just about any place, rather than come to the rescue of somebody who's under attack. They said, I'm going to take pictures of this so I can, sell it to some network somewhere or something, or just, the fact that I have it on the phone, or I can use this, in some nefarious way, perhaps. But somebody being attacked on the street, and they're standing there filming it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's
recording it.
They care more about getting it for the Instagram or whatever reason that they're getting it, and we do not care for each other the way that we used to. I mean, I've had plenty. I can't imagine just standing there watching a woman get raped on a train. Philadelphia, this was you. Stand up. It's ridiculous. It makes me very angry. This is probably the most feisty you're going to see me about this issue, because it drives me crazy that we're allowing this. Because as adults, our job is to protect children. That is, and I don't have children, but it's still my job to make sure that the children of this country are protected. And if adults aren't standing up, we are going to allow horrific things to happen to these children that will change the course of their life.
And what schools are doing now, and I'm a product of the public school system, but honest to goodness, I think that they ought to be abandoned.
Yeah, I mean,
abolished.
Yeah, the way that they're going now, I don't know if there's any saving them.
I'm not. Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not sure that we can actually save them.
Well, and I think, here on the islands, there's actually some stuff going on in a school. Someone has decided over the summer that they're the opposite sex, and now they're being allowed to use the opposite sex bathroom. I think that that's wrong. I don't think that that should be happening. And I feel bad for these children that are being convinced that they are a different sex. I think that this is happening from parents. I think this is happening from teachers. And I think that little kids don't think about that stuff. Like, I don't think that they would have ever thought, oh, I'm a different gender because I feel like playing with trucks today. Mm-hmm. It's not how that works.
No, it doesn't. And it is human nature, and kids don't understand it. And when you put up these drag queens or whatever it is, or drag personnel, it's detrimental. I mean, these kids are traumatized by this.
Absolutely.
They're told that they have to, that you think that you're a boy, little girl, well, then that's okay. Be who you are.
Not only that, it's interesting that they're ready to change sexes for these kids based on, what toys they play with, or, if they're more tomboyish, but then they don't want to define that they don't want to acknowledge that there are men and women, but yet they're willing to let these people have sex changes. These people make no sense. I cannot handle.
It is mutilation.
Handle the left. I cannot handle it.
It is mutilation, and we should be called in. Should be calling it out and called it exactly what it is, and it needs to be stopped immediately, if not sooner.
Well, and Marjorie Taylor Greene just put a bill out. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have Republicans co-sponsoring this bill with her. This is not controversial stuff. Most people do not think that we should be able to do that, and that we should protect kids at a federal level.
We're tired of waiting for the Republicans to grow a spine.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that we have better candidates moving forward, and that we hold them accountable for the bad decisions that they make.
Why is Jerry Nadler, the nattering nabob from New York, being called Rockabye Baby?
Oh, geez. Are we going to find that out next, Bill?
Yeah, we're going to find out coming up here on Get Real America, where we get real whether you like it or not.
We'll be back.
It's Independence Day, so let's talk about what's going on in America. Freedom is under attack in your state. Dictator Ron DeSantis incredibly lets you walk around without masks. That tyrant allows your kids to go to school during the pandemic, year 2 or 4, or who the hell knows. I urge you living in Florida to join the fight. Or join us in California, where we'll take the money you earn and give it to people who don't work. Visit San Francisco, where you can walk through human feces. If you're lucky, you might step on a syringe. Check out Los Angeles, where gas is so expensive, your kids only need to skip a meal or 2 or 10 to afford it. California, where freedom means lockdowns for you, while I go to the places you can't afford. Don't let them take your freedom. Come to California, where we'll take it, along with your money.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your governor speaking.
Today's training evolution, dogfighting, taking on the corporate media.
The rules of engagement are as follows. Number 1, don't fire unless fired upon, but when they fire, you fire back with overwhelming force. Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill. Number 2, never ever back down from a fight.
If I could complete the question, though.
So you're going to give a speech or ask a question? Number 3, don't accept their narrative.
It's wrong. It's a fake narrative. I just disabused you of the narrative, and you don't care about the facts.
It's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's turn up on.
Georgia's the worst, according to Stacey Abrams.
I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. We are the worst state in the country to live.
Oh, bless her heart. Georgia leads the nation because Brian Kemp is governor. He reopened Georgia first, brought thousands of jobs, and Kemp's cut taxes to help families deal with Biden's inflation. Brian Kemp's kept Georgia the best place to live.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I still want what she's eating.
I would love some of that first thing in the morning. I mean, but then we probably couldn't sit in these chairs all for the show. So
yeah,
maybe we'd have to wait till afterwards.
That's true. Well, the nattering nabob, Jerry Nadler.
I can't believe he's an elected official. Like, you guys don't have better up there?
Yeah,
like,
I don't think you've seen his feet in 30 years. But he's 75 years old now, and he is a long time. He is the oldest, not by far the oldest member of Congress, but he's certainly there. We've got the oldest legislature we've ever had. But a Democratic,
makes a lot of sense when we see what's going on.
Yeah. The Democratic staffer told the New York Post that Nadler, who serves as chairman of the powerful House Judiciary Committee, has earned the nickname from his peers, Rockabye Baby. Apparently, Jerry falls asleep quite often during meetings, including live on television while millions of people are watching. he just dozes off. And the meeting just goes on. They just keep going. Hey, okay, Jerry's asleep. Let's keep going on without him. And sometimes they'll say, he will have these meetings that will go well into the night. Suddenly he turns the gavel over to his chief assistant or something, and they say he disappears and goes goodness knows where.
What? Then he should get his pay docked. Here's the thing. When you don't show up for work and you don't do the right thing, you should not get paid.
His paycheck ought to be gift wrapped in the first place. A bunch of them up there need to be.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and here, so Orrin Hatch was my senator for a long time, and I know that he slept a lot too.
Why do they keep electing these people?
I have no idea. I wonder if they even have people that run against them. But also, I think that, not to be rude, but I think that we need to have a conversation about how old is too old to be in Congress or the Senate, because I will tell you, there's also a huge issue with them being connected to new technologies that are coming up and them being able to understand them. Because, I mean, we could go on and on and on about some of the things, but there are a lot of things that they're not investigating or they're not looking into that could really solve a lot of the problems here with technology.
I think it ought to be on the Supreme Court too. There ought to be a limit to how long you can serve. There should be an age limit, and it could be on up there. I think the age limit they put on pilots was ridiculous when you had to retire at 62 or 63 some years ago, and then they bumped it up to I think about 68. But there are people, I bet Sully Sullenberger, who's in his 70s now, could probably still fly an airplane pretty well.
Yeah, probably.
If you've got your mental faculties and you pass all the physicals, why shouldn't you be allowed to fly? And God knows any of the pilots now, Delta alone is looking for something like 360, and they can't find them. The airlines are now starting their own flight schools to train people, but it takes a long time to spool them up. It's at least 5 years from the time somebody starts before they put them behind the controls of a jumbo jet.
That actually makes me feel really good, Bill, because I would hate for them to do this diversity thing. Because you said, I don't know if you saw this earlier, I believe it was this year or late last year, they were going to try and only hire black female pilots. One of the airlines put that out. But I'm like, that's a little scary. Like, are they qualified or are we just putting them in seats? So that makes me feel good that it takes about 5 years, because I don't want to be flying in an airplane that has only had like a year of experience.
I don't care if they're wheeling you into the operating room, as I've used this as an analogy. I don't care if the entire operating room is all women, all Hispanic, all black, all Martian, whatever it is. I want to survive the operation. I want to get better and survive the operation.
Yep.
I don't care what. I had a friend here recently who he felt something. He knew something was wrong. He got his wife to drive into the emergency room, one of our hospitals here, and he was walking into the emergency room when his bowels burst. He said the pain was unbelievably excruciating. Fell down. He told his wife, get the, and fortunately he's in the parking lot going up to the emergency room, and they wheel him in very quickly. He said, and he just has vague memories. He said, when they rolled me into the operating room, he said, I didn't know if my surgeon was a female or a male or black, white, nothing. And it turns out it was a female. Saved his life. But she told him later, said, you shouldn't have, I'm sorry, it's a good thing you didn't see what I saw. Said, you're darn lucky to be alive. Well, but what difference does it make? You want your surgeon to know what the hell they're doing, and it doesn't make any difference. This quota system is pathetic.
Yep, and I think it's just dangerous, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think, here's the thing. I think before Obama, we were actually in a pretty good place as a country where we weren't really so focused on the race and the gender and all of this stuff. And then Obama came in, and it definitely escalated things a lot. But I think people are also so exhausted from hearing about it. So I think that we are going to see this pivot, and we're starting to see it, the U-turn, but it definitely takes time. It's not an immediate thing.
Those are the brickbats that Rush Limbaugh took years ago when it looked like Jesse Jackson might get the Democrat presidential nomination.
Dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. But it was interesting to see this party that is so concerned about diversity, cares so much for the black community, when it looked like Jesse was going to get the nomination, they put every roadblock they could think of in his way to make sure that he didn't. And one of the things that, a lot of people calling into Rush and said, well, don't you think it would be great if Jesse Jackson got to be president of the United States? Then people couldn't complain about racism anymore. It would solve the racial problem. He said, no, it would get worse. Oh, he took brickbats for that one, boy.
And it did get worse under Obama.
And we saw that with the Dalai Lama. Yes, sirree. If you notice, every time anytime that there was a police incident, he sided with the bad guys, especially when blacks were involved. When the kid that got beat up and actually killed down in Florida, for days, I remember doing this story on the radio and said it was this gated community, and the guy that was actually wound up killing him was Hispanic. I got one of my listeners called up and said, I've been following this story for about 2 weeks now. This is the first, when you mentioned that this morning, that's the first time I knew it was a gated community and that the guy was actually, the perpetrator or the guy who was on that patrol was Hispanic. They referred to him at the Communist News Network as a white Hispanic. This was incredible.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
And when they said that, they kept showing this picture of this cute little 14-year-old kid. They never did show the 18-year-old picture with the gold teeth and everything else in his mouth. And when the investigation finally came out, this guy was exonerated. And NBC was called on the carpet for editing the audio from the 911 call.
Well, that's the thing. We've got to start holding media companies accountable for what they're reporting, because number one, when I look at a story, a lot of times there isn't enough there for me to even come to a conclusion about anything. It's very high level, and it basically tells you what narrative to believe, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to start having real reporting done in this country, in-depth reporting. I will say Project Veritas has done a great job of this, bringing back real journalism. But we don't have enough people doing this, and he is definitely taking a beating for doing it. So
isn't it interesting how the media just loved undercover camera investigations until Project Veritas came along and started revealing the really bad stuff from the left, and suddenly the media was just all up in arms about how this guy was invading people's privacy.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And my point is that unless we stabilize the media and either take them off air or have some accountability on what they report, we're going to continue to have a lot of, they use mis and disinformation. But a lot of lies being told, and people aren't getting the truth about what happened. They will report on race when it's convenient for their narrative, and then they don't report on it when it makes them look bad.
And the mayor of Nolens, Democrat, she checks off the boxes. She's Democrat, she's black, she's female. She flies first class to Europe on your dime, $30,000 in flight. And you know what she's not going to pay it back, she says.
Well, and she has to be in first class because she needs the rest. It's really hard to be the New Orleans mayor.
She also argues that the economy is unsafe for black women.
Oh, baloney. Baloney, Bill.
The economy is unsafe for black women. What does that mean? The economy is unsafe. The economy is unsafe for all of us.
Yeah, it definitely is. I need to be able to sleep on a flight. I need to be able to work on a flight. I don't know if you've tried to work in the economy class, but it's very difficult.
But to Mayor LaToya Cantrell down there in the Crescent City, also, a pox on both your houses.
But here's the thing. New Orleans is going through a huge crime spree. I actually just talked to someone that is living there right now, and they're like, it's scary to go out during the day, at night, because they don't care. They're
it's scary to go out the
people.
day or at the night. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's very scary there. Why are you going to Europe? Why are you not taking care of what is going on in your city and serving your citizens, which you're being paid to do?
I'm sure they make it sound like it's some sort of business trip to
Europe for what?
Bring jobs to Louisiana.
It's a bunch of crap. You guys need to stop allowing these politicians to lie to you, and you need to start holding them accountable. These cities are in pure chaos right now. We saw the stuff in Memphis. That's been a disaster. Someone that is videotaping them shooting people, and it's left on Facebook. You can't make this stuff up.
And yet,
It's so infuriating, Bill.
was his Facebook page taken down?
No, it's still up, still alive and well on Facebook.
And how's that Facebook page for President Trump?
I believe that he's still restricted on all platforms except for Truth.
Except with his own.
Yep, and they've also restricted that from going on Google. So very exciting. These oligarchs, they're just ruling here. But we want to leave on a really positive note, Bill. What is happening today for you?
I have a grandson who is celebrating his 7th birthday, and we're going to be going out and celebrating in fine style tonight. The kid knows we're going to a famous Japanese restaurant, so he loves the food there, and we're off to celebrate Aiden's 7th birthday. God bless him.
Happy birthday, Aiden. And also we want to wish a happy birthday to Debbie, who is our producer's wife. We will not reveal. She's going to be 20 again. So she's amazing.
A little over 7.
Yes, she's amazing. And we want to wish her a happy birthday today. And I think that that's going to wrap our show today. We want you to go to our website, GRA News Media. Check out our social media pages, Rumble, YouTube. Check us out on Spotify and Apple. And yeah.
And we want to hear from you. So please tell us what we need to be doing, tell what we need to be covering, what we miss. Tell us where we're wrong.
We would love to hear it. We would love to hear it.
Sure would. Yeah. All that more, Getting Real America, and we are getting real. We'll see you for the Tuesday edition tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.